Okay, I want to do one more topic, which is going through all of Logan Paul's like legal problems within the Coffeezilla lawsuit. Now, Legal Bites had posted a video in which, you know, she had deep dived into basically Logan Paul's legal mistakes in responding to Coffeezilla, and she has an entire, you know, section of her channel dedicated to this lawsuit with Logan Paul. And if there's one thing that I'm surprised at, I locked into that Cryptogeddon, we're calling it, you know, Dramageddon for the straight boys. Cryptogeddon, I'm locked in, and I'm so on Coffeezilla's side with it. And so I'm really excited to go through Legal Bites video and hear from someone who is way more intelligent than me tell me about things Logan Paul has messed up on, because if there's one thing Adam McIntyre is a Logan Paul hater. So let's get into it. Also, my second channel, I'm doing Vlogmas right now. If you want to go down and subscribe, I'm uploading every single day, and I'm going to New York this weekend, so really fun vlogs coming. This is the venue for the London show. As you know, I'm doing London and Dublin shows. If you send confirmation of coming to the shows on any social media, I will send you signed art cards for free. And also, not only are we doing London and Dublin on March 9th and March 10th, we're doing Dallas, LA, Seattle, Chicago, and Brooklyn. Chicago sold out. LA is almost sold out. I can't wait to meet everyone. But let's get into the video. All right.
After Coffeezilla came out with a 3-part expose about Logan Paul on the subject of scamming his fans for the crypto project CryptoZoo, Logan Paul decided to respond with a couple videos of his own, in both of which he forcefully threatened to sue Coffeezilla.
If not, we're going to handle this ourselves while we continue to build CryptoZoo, and I'll see you in court.
Part 6 is the more he says and the more he continues to spread this misinformation that this was any sort of...
Which is, again, just so crazy because we have you on record, mama. Diva, we have you on record saying that you think he's a good faith person and that you, like, trust his judgment and all these different things. Come on, Diva. Come on. You even thanked him. You apologized to him.
...or scam, the more I have for the lawsuit that I am filing. The defamation lawsuit that
I hate the fucking zoom-ins of this podcast so much. So stupid.
Wrong.
In this video, we're talking about what's happened since, as well as a bunch of places where Logan may have made some major legal missteps. Let's get into it. So as a bit of background, if you don't know who Logan Paul is, he's a massive, huge YouTuber.
Okay, so she does background, right? So we're going to skip this, God bless, but just because we spent a long time diving into the background of the video. So we're going to skip past the background because if you've have been a locked-in mucker, we know.
One of the things that's pretty unique to working in this space is the degree to which things can move very quickly, especially when you are covering controversies between two different major YouTube channels. Sometimes even if you jump right onto a trending topic right away, somewhere along the process of scripting, filming, and editing your video all the way up until the upload, things can change very quickly. And when that happens, sometimes you have to go back and sort of change the video a little bit so that it is still relevant to the viewers. Hopefully still relevant to the viewers. Anyway, that's basically what happened with this video. I was just about ready to come out with a video about all of the legal reasons why Logan Paul's 2 video reactions were a terrible idea. They still were a bad idea, but the first part of the video really kind of focused on Logan Paul's threats of litigation against Coffeezilla. And at this point in time, Coffeezilla has since tweeted out that he received a phone call from Logan Paul saying that he was going to be taking down his 2 response videos and that he was not going to be moving forward with litigation. What's up? Yeah. Oh, thank you. Holmes, you want to hang out? No? Okay. Now, I will say this is the best possible decision that Logan could have made at this particular juncture. Hello.
Diva.
Okay. Hi. Hey, buddy. You have something to say? Okay. Anyway, back to it. Where was I? I'm going to go back a little bit. I will say this is the best possible decision that Logan could have made at this particular juncture, because even though he has to take a big...
Logan said, "Hey all, just wanted to update you. I deleted my initial response to Coffee's series. It was rash and misaligned with the true issues at hand. So I called him today and apologized. The war is not with Coffee. In fact, I'm grateful." Oh, he's grateful. "He brought this to life. I will be taking accountability." When someone says I will be taking accountability, I'm like... I don't believe it. And coming forward with a plan in the near future. Thank you all for believing in this project and sticking with me. I know it's been bumpy, but your support is everything, and I will make this right.
Public L,
I'm sure, Diva.
Losing a game of litigation chicken against CoffeeZilla, moving forward with a defamation case against CoffeeZilla would have been potentially disastrous for Logan Paul, no matter what. Here's past Alita explaining why. If he does decide to move forward and pursue litigation, in my personal opinion, I don't think that he's likely to win a case of defamation against CoffeeZilla for this expose. And that's because in order to win a case of defamation, it's not just about the full story not being told. There are
damages and malicious intent. Don't worry, this diva knows her ish about defamation law.
Elements that have to be met in order for the plaintiff to win. First, the plaintiff has to show that the defendant lied or made some sort of a misstatement about the plaintiff. Second, the plaintiff has to show that that statement was made to at least one third party. Third, the plaintiff has to make a showing of the requisite intent. I'll get to that in just a second. And fourth, the plaintiff has to show that there's some sort of reputational harm that was done to the plaintiff as a result of the lie or the misstatement. Now, there are certain cases where the plaintiff doesn't actually have to show this last element, the reputational harm element. That is defamation per se. This is where somebody has lied about somebody being a criminal, having an STD, or sometimes about...
Oh my god, not the Gabby Hanna, Jason Nash, Trisha Paytas lore. Who knows? Do y'all know? Do y'all remember the Gabby Hanna, Trisha Paytas, Jason Nash herpes thing? Damn, it still gets brought up to this day. Y'all remember? Anyone? Let me ask the audience. Yes. Look at these chronically online people.
Work or their profession. But
how could I forget?
To that third element, the requisite intent. It depends on who it is the plaintiff is. Where that plaintiff is a private person versus a public figure, then the plaintiff only needs to show that the defendant lied or made the misstatement about them with negligence. That's a fairly low standard and fairly easy to meet. But where we're talking about the plaintiff being a public figure, Logan Paul very easily a public figure here.
And again, one of the greatest things that CoffeeZilla did was he was like, how is Logan Paul going to say that I ruined his reputation when what is your reputation to ruin? I was like, ooh, like you can't say that his reputation's ruined, you know, in general, but you also can't say his reputation is ruined to do with crypto stuff because he had already been accused of scamming people with crypto before CoffeeZilla insinuated that.
Then he has to show actual malice. Meaning, Logan Paul would have to show that not only did CoffeeZilla lie or make some misstatements about him, but that he did so either knowing that what he was saying was false or with reckless disregard.
This is why defamation lawsuits, by the way, are so fucking bullshit. Like, and it's why they're so common as well, because they're so easy to file and they're so easy to fucking dismiss.
As to the truth or falsity of the statement. Now, there are a number of issues with Logan Paul claiming that the video series was somehow defamatory. Number one, his video doesn't actually point out any specific statements that he says are untrue, other than to say that there is more information that CoffeeZilla didn't actually include in his videos. That's not the same thing as saying that something that CoffeeZilla actually said was actually a false statement. He has to pull out a specific statement to say this was false. The only thing that we can really point to here that he would be saying is false is that Logan Paul is a scammer. So I guess we can just...
Which again is too broad of a term without disproving it. And also you can easily insinuate that Logan Paul is a scammer or isn't a scammer by the same retrospect. You know what I mean? It can literally just be said as an opinion as well. So that is something that Logan Paul like really hyperfixates on. He's calling me a scammer, defaming me. Okay, why would he be calling you that? Like, why is he calling you a scammer? Should we unpack that maybe?
Go with that and then continue on with our analysis.
A lot of losses today.
The actual malice standard is something that is going to be a very, very, very high hurdle for Logan Paul to meet. And that's because part of the beauty of CoffeeZilla's series is he shows his work along the entire way. He talks about the different weaknesses and potential arguments and how he really looks at things from multiple.
CoffeeZilla's such a diva.
Take one person's word for it. So I later confirmed with another developer who worked for something called the Blockchain Center that he also hadn't been paid. we've been paid nothing. I would have loved to have Zoo, but I don't have any.
He talks to a number of individuals, including another journalist who has previously investigated Eddie Ibanez, one of the other members of the CryptoZoo team.
I wasn't quite sure what to make of him. Based on what I knew about him, he was a MIT grad who went on to work for the CIA and the Defense Department. And
The way Eddie's like Becky with the good hair, but like Eddie with the good teeth, like his teeth are fucking beautiful. He may be crazy and a liar, and a scammer, but those teeth are amazing.
And it wasn't long after I sat down that I realized he was wasting my time.
Can you tell me about some of the lies Eddie told you?
Eddie has told me so many lies over the course of my 2 interviews with him. And the first lie he told me is probably the oldest lie that he's told so many people, which is that he's an orphan.
So by showing his work along the way, Coffeezilla really has immunized himself quite a bit from any potential defamation liability here, especially because we're talking about actual malice. It's really hard to look at everything that he did in all of these videos and to say that he was being reckless about the truth or falsity here. It looks actually like he was being quite careful in pulling on all kinds of different threads and looking at things from multiple perspectives. So in my personal opinion, I think that it would be a fool's errand for Logan Paul to go down this route to sue Coffeezilla for defamation, because I really don't think that that's the case.
And again, the problem with people like Logan Paul is it really doesn't matter whether or not there is like a good reason to sue, or whether there is true intention of Logan feeling like he has to sue behind this, or just true intention behind it, right? Because it doesn't matter, because people like Logan Paul have so much money to throw away that they are able to abuse a weak system because they have so much money, and the system will always pander towards the person who has the more money, or at least most cases. So this is just about shutting someone up and using your money as power. And it's really fucked up, and I will always be on the side of someone who's against the person like that, in this instance, Coffeezilla.
That he would really be likely to win anyway. But even before we get to the point of proving or disproving the defamation, Coffeezilla really actually has a couple options here if faced with a complaint. And those options are between filing an anti-SLAPP motion or allowing the litigation to proceed. So first, let's talk about anti-SLAPP. So anti-SLAPP comes from SLAPP, which means strategic litigation against public participation.
The SLAPP. Wait, let me see who is like my age. When you hear the SLAPP, what do you think of? I want to see if there's anyone around my age in the comments. The SLAPP. Tori Vega! iCarly, wrong. Oh, wait. Yeah, you're wrong. It was Victorious. The SLAPP.com. Wait, was it iCarly too? I swear it was just Victorious. I wanted that pear pad so bad. You know the phones they had in iCarly and fucking Victorious? I made my own one when I was younger. You have no idea how much I wanted this.
This video might or might not end up on YouTube.
I want this so bad.
I have to pick up
This
the
isn't
phone.
even a real
It's not
phone.
code. It's like 2.
But I want
Two
it.
that.
I need this.
Check it out. Check out the apps. Yeah.
I would have ate this up years ago.
Splash face.
Splash face!
Dude, that's awesome.
That is so awesome. You're so correct.
Careful.
500,000 views on this, by the way.
This is like the XT, I think, which is the one that like Tori was like waiting to get.
Wow. How to get a pear phone.
A specific color, a detail on the back, it really can be whatever you want. So, yeah, that is a very good website to choose from. Just a plain pear phone, I believe, can be like $12 usually. Pear pads are usually more in the 20s, and
Pear pad? Oh.
It's basically a mechanism for removing very quickly litigation that is aimed towards trying to diminish someone's First Amendment rights. In other words, where the lawsuit is basically aimed at trying to prevent someone from doing something that they have a constitutional right to do so. Like, for example, speak freely. Anti-SLAPP motions are filed really early in the litigation, especially in states like Texas and California, where they are very powerful and have a very specific mechanism for freezing the litigation, getting everything kicked out, and ultimately punishing the plaintiff for bringing it in the first place. In an anti-SLAPP inquiry, basically, usually there's a two-step process. First, the court asks whether the conduct that gave rise to the lawsuit is protected by the First Amendment. Examples of conduct that falls under this umbrella would be filing litigation.
Wait. Wait. Will you be my American boy? American boy. Sorry, the fan. I'm your national anthem. God, you're so handsome. Is it protected with your First Amendment right? Is it? Is it? I can't believe I just had this in here. Wonderful.
Speaking in a congressional hearing, or speaking on a topic of public interest. In this particular case, CoffeeZilla was talking about influencers potentially scamming their own viewers or their own fans for the purposes of making money off of them. That is arguably a topic of public interest.
Wow, it's a crazy outfit, by the way.
We have defamation lawsuit here, and CoffeeZilla decides to file an anti-SLAPP motion. That first prong would be met. But that's not the end of the analysis here. See, then the court would be asking whether or not the plaintiff has a likelihood of success on the merits of their case. And
okay, y'all. Can I address something really quickly? Can I have UK citizenship since you don't want it? When are y'all gonna get it in your fucking head that I'm not I do not have UK citizenship? I have Irish citizenship. I am an Irish person. And when I move to America, I do not lose my Irish citizenship, nor do I become Northern Ireland as part of the UK. Baby, I do not have a British passport. I have an Irish passport. My family all have Irish passports. It's a joke, my guy. You should have seen the comments on my video. I get really pissed off when people call me British.
And as I already discussed, in my personal opinion, I don't think that if Logan Paul brought a defamation case against CoffeeZilla, he would be likely to win. So this would be a case where CoffeeZilla arguably could have a very successful anti-SLAPP motion, anti-SLAPP process that got rid of this case very, very swiftly with zero expense to him. But like I said, that is one option that CoffeeZilla has if he is served with a complaint.
I love his background, by the way. It's very cute.
You see, CoffeeZilla could actually decide to allow the litigation.
Yeah, it literally is just a work visa, but I have the work visa anyway for tour. And the work visa allows you to live in America for 3 years at a time, and then you can renew it.
To move forward. There's nothing compelling him to file an anti-SLAPP motion here. Now you might be thinking, why in the world would he do that? Who wants to have litigation proceed forward when it's expensive, it's scary, it's intimidating, you'll have to deal with lawyers all the time, it's a huge mess. Well, you have to remember that we are talking about CoffeeZilla here, who spent a year talking to individuals and investigating Logan Paul and CryptoZoo and all of the individuals that were involved in it, talking to people behind the scenes and trying to investigate in various ways and examining the blockchain. He really spent a lot of time and effort really trying to dig into it from an outsider's perspective. But if Logan Paul sues CoffeeZilla for defamation on this particular issue, and CoffeeZilla decides to allow it to proceed, it goes to discovery next.
Sorry, someone just commented, some of y'all weren't a mucker when the Queen died. Oh my god, I need to show you this tweet. My fucking tweet about Queen Elizabeth and Malibu Barbie will haunt me until the day I fucking die. Look at this. So remember when the queen died and everyone was saying that Malibu Barbie was going to be reincarnated as Queen Elizabeth, and I went, uh-oh, baby Satan incoming, referring to my fucking deep hatred for the fucking monarchy and Queen Elizabeth and the fact I couldn't give a shit that she died. Remember that turned into a big thing of Adam McIntyre calls Trisha Paytas's unborn baby Satan. Uh-huh.
You know, she came reincarnated back as a good person, you know what I mean? She was a good person to begin with, but got jaded along the way. Well, ask Adam McIntyre. I think Scotland didn't like her or something. Ireland.
I think anyone in...
You know, she came reincarnated back as a...
I will never. You'll never get away from the sound of the woman that loves you. I'm like, are people that fucking stupid? No shade. Like, I would literally tweet in reference to, like, Trisha Paytas's child being Satan. I'm sorry. Like, please, if you genuinely believe that, and then I would publicly tweet that, you need to be institutionalized in a mental health facility, and you need the doors locked and to never, ever be allowed to leave. Dear God.
Meaning, Logan Paul opens himself up to having to give over all kinds of evidence that is relevant.
And again, this is the really interesting thing with Discovery. Because Logan would have to hand over so much to Discovery, they would probably find the same things, if not more, that what coffeezilla find in a series. Therefore, the lawsuit kind of just has to be thrown out.
To this particular lawsuit. And when it comes to deciding what kind of information is discoverable or not discoverable, it's not just the information that would tend to prove or disprove the elements of defamation. It's also the evidence that would tend to prove or disprove the defenses that are made by the defendant. And the thing about defamation is that truth of the statement is always an absolute defense to the litigation. So in other words, if coffeezilla decided to allow it to proceed to discovery, he would have access to any information related to whether or not CryptoZoo is a scam. All of that would be discoverable, and Logan Paul would be required under rules of civil litigation to hand that over to coffeezilla. And any attempt to say that that's private information is not really likely to hold up, because at the end of the day, Logan Paul is the one that brought the litigation in the first place. So he is the one that has opened up the door to all of that information coming out to the other side in the first place. Now, the court may decide.
And keep in mind how much coffeezilla was able to expose with just information that was handed over to him from people that were kind of like turning on Logan. Could you imagine if he had access to all Logan's shit in general? Actually, I hope he would, because I want to see that.
Put certain rules on whether or not that information may be disclosed to the public, but by and large, I would expect.
Oh, the Meghan Trainor tweet. I was ahead of my time.
A lot of that information for content. So either way, Logan Paul, in my opinion, loses the moment he files a complaint against coffeezilla. Okay, so you might be thinking, okay, so that's basically the end of it, right? Logan has decided that he's not moving forward with the litigation. He's taking down the 2 reaction videos. That's it, right? Well, not so fast. See, there are a number of reasons why those videos were arguably a terrible idea, legally speaking, that doesn't necessarily just go away just because he took those down. Here's Pastelita again, explaining why Logan might have some legal issues from those videos. Number 1, he says that he learned through coffeezilla's series that the people that he had hired were scammers and felons.
I don't know what to believe from his stuff, and I don't know what not to believe. I found out stuff. I found out things watching his series. Like, dude, I was at the airport.
So I fucking hate the zoom-ins. Yeah, but this just goes to show that, like, good did come from coffeezilla's series, because even Logan was able to find out that people he was hiring were scammers. Therefore, if anything, the coffeezilla series was good. Not I stand before you as a mucker.
When I watched the part where he said Jake's had stolen,
of course, I was like, what?
$6 million. I don't know if that's true or not, but I knew he was a bad actor, hence why we kicked him off the team immediately when we found out he was only in it for the money.
Prerogatives, yeah.
So therefore, that's feeding into the narrative that coffeezilla's series was actually good.
And fell apart.
Not only is this a bad look in terms of the court of public opinion, and it makes him look incredibly incompetent as a leader.
Oh my God, I can't wait to see him down.
Be enough for investors to really sniff around and possibly pin him for defrauding them. Basically, in the video, he admits that a number of people that were working for him essentially scammed and defrauded all of these people, took off with their money, etc., etc.
Crypto King Jake stole $6 million. True or not, we had already removed him from the team when we realized he was a bad actor and his motives were purely financial. Conman Eddie, lead developer, stole $1.7 million. True or not, when we learned he was a bad actor as well, he was immediately...
Therefore, this could be argued that CryptoZoo at its core is a faulty, alleged scam. Who's behind CryptoZoo? Logan Paul. So... not Logo Paul.
removed from the team.
He says, effectively, these guys scammed people. It wasn't me. They just happened to work for me, and I made the mistake of relying on them.
I guess that's what I get for trusting the team that I relied on to vet and manage Eddie's hiring process, who has turned out to be a professional con man that I have since learned fooled billionaires, the Mormon Church, the owner of the New York Yankees, and now me.
So it's clear that he's trying to just pass off the blame to these other individuals and to say that he also is a victim, and maybe even more of a victim than some of these other victims, because he tries to dig up some crap about one of the victims that shows up in the video. But anyway, those statements don't really help him, because he basically is admitting in this video that these people have scammed these other people. He just says that it's not his fault. But him disclaiming fault here, it doesn't get him out of liability potentially from these investors. There's a number of issues.
Because, again, he has now passed off the blame to other people who were in his company by saying that they were scammers, but who's also in the company at the time and working closely with them, Logan Paul. Therefore, it can just be argued that Logan Paul's the exact same.
Here that still lead the responsibility back to Logan. You see, he says that these people were hired by other people. Okay, let's go through the list. The first is the lead developer, who coffeezilla refers to as Z, who was apparently hired by Eddie Ibanez. Eddie Ibanez, in turn, I guess turned out to be a scam artist who said he went to MIT, didn't really go to MIT, said he was an orphan, wasn't really an orphan, and then subsequently absconded.
The Clinton Kane of it all.
$1.7 million. So apparently the scam artist is the one who hired the felon to do the main developing on the app, or not the app, the project. And then he just stops the analysis there, as if that completely cuts off the responsibility to him. But at the end of the day, if Eddie Ibanez was the one who was deputized to hire the lead developer, Eddie Ibanez was also hired by someone. Logan doesn't say who hired Eddie Ibanez, but he does seem to suggest that it wasn't him. But the fact that he doesn't say who hired Eddie indicates that it was someone else close to him, and probably someone that he doesn't want to throw under the bus. To me, the only other person who probably would have hired...
And if this goes to discovery, then all of that has to get exposed. So in his petty attempt to try to use his money and fame to intimidate coffeezilla, which he is currently doing, by the way, because of the, lawsuit, he's going to get exposed in the process, which is beautiful.
Eddie would have been Logan's manager, Jeff Levin. And judging by the fact that Jeff made an appearance...
I hate it when I hire a fake orphan. Accidentally.
...on Logan Paul's most recent podcast, Impulsive, something tells me that the two of them are still quite close. So this tells me that despite the fact that Logan is apparently upset about the fact that Eddie Ibanez turned out to be a scam artist, he's not that upset at whoever it was that hired him, whether it was him or it was Jeff, because both of them are still around, and Logan's just angry at coffeezilla, apparently.
Apologize is crazy.
It bothers me. He won. He got to me, bro. He's the most formidable opponent I've had. I'm not kidding, guys.
But even if Jeff was the one to hire him, at the end of the day, who is Jeff hired by? Logan. And the crux of the matter for this particular issue is the fact that there is something called a cause of action for negligent hiring, where an employer is legally responsible for an employee who harms a third party. This is where an employer knew or should have known about a risk presented by hiring the employee. This is why employers will very often run background checks on new hires. If it turns out that a new hire has something in their background that is particularly risky to either their other coworkers or to their clients or to anybody else to whom they might have contact in their professional work, that's something that could actually be brought all the way up to the employer. And so at the end of the day, if Logan is blaming either the lead developer or Eddie Ibanez for anything having to do with the failure of CryptoZoo, at the end of the day, that's still going to get back to Logan, because he should have done what was necessary in order to fulfill a background check on all of these individuals. And it's not like he didn't have access to this particular information. After all, according to CoffeeZilla's video, there was another journalist who was investigating Eddie Ibanez particularly, who actually found the lies that Eddie Ibanez had told about his background and about his resume, and brought all that information to Jeff before the CryptoZoo NFTs went live.
I found out CryptoZoo did have an advantage that could have saved them all this trouble the whole time.
So a month before the launch of CryptoZoo, I got on the phone with Jeff Levin, Logan Paul's manager. And after he spoke fondly of Eddie and his work, I confronted him about some of Eddie's lies, including how he didn't work for the NFL. Jeff told me he doesn't know much about the NFL, but he knows about business.
I'm like, how did this many people believe it? Like, do you just, not look into shit, y'all? I mean, okay.
Have you ever verified that anything Eddie said about himself is true?
We verified that it's true.
Yeah.
We definitely talked to people.
Okay.
And his friends and, people that he said he has relationships with, which we've confirmed that for sure.
Okay. Because I had trouble with some of that, with the NFL, saying that, no, we've never worked with him.
Well, who'd you talk to? The NFL. Who at the NFL?
Yeah.
Like who at the NFL?
The comms teams for the Eagles and the...
who at the NFL?
People specifically that he named that he said he worked with.
I don't know necessarily with the football stuff.
Okay.
I don't have relationships in the football world.
Sure.
But in the business world, we've definitely, talked to multiple people.
Like Todd and Chris, and they backed him.
Correct.
Wait a second. This means at minimum, Jeff knew about Eddie's background beforehand, or part of it, and still decided to go with it. This is just unbelievable, willful stupidity. And since Jeff is Logan's manager, I assume him and the team should have known about this as well. But still, they went forward with it even though they knew this stuff before launch.
So yeah, a strong argument could probably be made that Jeff, and by extension Logan, because Jeff is Logan's agent after all, he is his manager. He is paid for that particular reason to do certain tasks, to fulfill certain tasks.
On behalf of Logan.
They had this knowledge about the things that Eddie Ibanez had done that were shady in his past, the lies that he had told, the fact that he didn't have the experience that he said he had, and all of these things were risks to the project and therefore to those third-party investors. They had this information going into it and decided not to act on it. But on top of that, as if that's not enough, there's something else that struck me while watching Logan Paul's response video to CoffeeZilla's series about him. You see, he throws out a number of allegations about a number of people that just for Logan's sake, I really hope is true, because it would be terribly ironic if in a video where he's throwing around the word defamation about CoffeeZilla, if in fact in that very video, he is actually defaming a number of people. First, he leads with this about CoffeeZilla.
You see, CoffeeZilla tried to work with law enforcement in the past, but his work was described as not anchored to truth and often speculative.
First off, this part feels awkwardly out of place and makes me think that maybe this was just Logan trying to satisfy his ego in the moment, like what he did with all of the memeified photos of CoffeeZilla throughout the video. But more importantly, when did that happen? What law enforcement agency is he talking about? Who said that about him? At best, we've got a hearsay statement.
I'm like, who's his sources?
Receipts, so the viewer is supposed to just blindly accept it. And this is a risky tactic when it's coming from someone who is already starting off with his own credibility issues. But at worst, if it's not true, it's potentially defamatory. Now, I am not saying that it is not true. I have no idea about CoffeeZilla's history, any potential history trying to work with law enforcement or working with law enforcement, but the lack of receipts made me question this. But there is also another point here that should be looked at about the statements that Logan makes about CoffeeZilla in this particular video. And that is Logan's assertion that CoffeeZilla is this criminal who broke the law by recording his manager, Jeff, over the phone.
And surely a real internet detective would not break criminal and civil laws in trying to get information, right?
He's so alarming looking, isn't he?
Phone call without his permission. And then more like an internet criminal, post it online.
And it was interesting. It was like, this is wild.
So let's talk about that really quick. So I will start off this point by saying that there is a possibility that Logan has a point here. Some states do in fact require that all parties on a recording have to consent to being recorded in order for that to be a lawful recording. But note that this is where they have a reasonable expectation that they would be speaking in privacy. If someone's just having a conversation out on a public courtyard, there's arguably no reasonable expectation of privacy, and so anyone can arguably be recorded in a circumstance like that. But aside from that, it also depends on where the individuals are located when the alleged recording is happening. Regardless of whether Jeff was in California or Puerto Rico, both of these jurisdictions require that all of the parties to the recording give their consent before that recording being lawful. Of course, Jeff could have been physically in some other state or outside of the country altogether when that happened, in which case the analysis could possibly change. Texas, on the other hand, which is where CoffeeZilla, I believe, lives, is a single party state, meaning that only one of the parties to the conversation needs to give their consent, so CoffeeZilla would be the one to give the consent.
It is really crazy how much it changes from state to state, isn't it? And how someone being in a different state can completely change the outcome of a lawsuit.
He's the one who's recording after all, and so therefore from his side, he has a lawful recording. But the thing is that when it comes to courts treating multi-jurisdictional issues like this, usually they are going to go with the most restrictive state. So if Jeff was in California or Puerto Rico and CoffeeZilla was in Texas, the court is going to take whatever state Jeff was in and go with that. But the main question here would be whether or not Jeff had a reasonable expectation of privacy when talking to a journalist who says that he's calling because he's investigating the whole crypto zoo issue, his company. Look,
it's also a fair point because it is kind of expected that when journalists are on call that you are either on record or off record, but a lot of the journalist calls get recorded so that they can transcript it after.
Paul, all of these individuals that were involved. This is arguably a relatively gray area that would involve argument from both sides, but honestly, my gut says probably not. But still, even if CoffeeZilla did in fact violate this law, Logan Paul is also a little bit misleading here about what the penalties are for this. He's highlighted, for example, a $10,000 penalty. But if you actually read the California statute, that is for someone who has already been convicted of that particular crime. Another part of that statute says that the first offense for something like that would be $2,500. Now, of course, that's nothing to sneeze at, but when we're talking about litigation costs, that's really not worth the filing fees. But leading back to Logan throughout the video, calling CoffeeZilla essentially a criminal for recording Jeff over the phone, is that potentially defamatory? Personally, it makes me uncomfortable because of the fact that coffeezilla would have an argument against him as to why, in fact, he doesn't violate any of these statutes because of the fact that that conversation doesn't have a reasonable expectation of privacy, or maybe he, in fact, actually did get permission from Jeff and that just wasn't something that showed up in the video. Now, if Logan is wrong about that, is that defamation automatically? Personally, I think that would be a relatively weak case for defamation, but it is still something that Logan is arguably opening himself up to by perpetuating those allegations against coffeezilla and doing so very robustly.
I mean, it all just has to do with ego and having to be the loudest one.
About a number of other people as well. First, I'll mention Emilio. Here's what Logan says about him.
And surely you knew Emilio, the gentleman who supposedly let his child invest in a cryptocurrency, was allegedly responsible for 2 rug pulls before you interviewed him. So either you missed that or you knew it and failed to let the public know. Why? Because it was a clear sign that he was also untrustworthy.
First off, objection relevance. What does that have to do with Emilio getting scammed potentially by CryptoZoo and all of the guys that were involved in it?
It's just this ego of deflection, and you are never in the fucking wrong.
How do we know that that's actually true? How do we know that this Emilio, who has a relatively common first name, to be fair, especially in certain parts of the world, is actually the same guy who performed this rug pull with 2 other coins in the past? If that's not true, potentially defamatory, of course, with the proper analysis of requisite intent and all that kind of stuff. But that's something that Logan really should be relatively careful of. I don't know. Maybe he did.
It's again, if you're preaching being defamed and stuff, why are you so casually throwing around all these claims about people and not showing any proof about it? You know what I mean? It shows that you don't have any real intention of this other than just being the one who wins.
His own analysis. Maybe he has all kinds of background information before saying these things, but the way in which it's been just sort of thrown out there without real receipts, without any sort of foundation, really dials up my anxiety a little bit on the things that he's saying here. But finally, Logan also throws out a major accusation against the lead developer of CryptoZoo. Specifically, this is what he says.
Coffee, you interviewed the developer who stole the game code, fled to Switzerland, and held it hostage for $1 million. Well, his name is Zach Kelling. Surely, as the internet detective that you proclaim to be, you would know that he spent time in prison for multiple felonies, one for aggravated robbery, armed robbery at a liquor store, and the other for, surprise, obstructing the legal process. I can see why you kept him anonymous.
Who will be calling Z here.
I guess among many things, it doesn't surprise me that he lied about having 30 engineers and a $50,000 a week burn rate.
On my end, I have 30 engineers. I'm earning $50,000 a week.
Which, side note, is how this delusionist landed on the $1 million code ransom, but it turns out he only had 3 engineers. Wouldn't someone with journalistic integrity know their credible source had not only an agenda, but a fondness for orange jumpsuits? Or did you just hear what you want?
Logan Paul saying that is crazy because, again, you're lucky you have money.
Wanted to hear and moved on. Because even if you're lying to yourself, Stephen, you still have to believe it.
Again, objection relevance. Also, if this were a court of law, this would not be admissible to try to discredit this developer anyway, because of the fact that the prior crimes are not crimes of dishonesty. But at the same time, how do we know that this Zach Kelling, who is a felon, is the same Zach Kelling as the lead developer for CryptoZoo? There are 2 things specifically that give me pause here. First, the image that he puts on the screen looks like a basic background search result, but we can't see any way of corroborating whether or not this guy is the same guy as that guy. And so it's relatively unclear to the viewer.
This is so true. This has no relevance to Logan not paying him, allegedly.
It does look like there is a potential discrepancy in the middle name of this individual, showing that there is not a match between this person and the person that they are searching for information on. It could just be that they didn't have his middle name, I suppose, but still, when you're looking at this as a viewer that is just taking in this information, that's a possible discrepancy. That is a possible warning sign. Now, one thing that Logan Paul does do is he shows a picture of Zach Kelling today and then a picture of him when he was younger. And it does look like it's the same guy. But then Logan Paul also shows a photo of the younger version of Zach Kelling in an orange jumpsuit. And that does seem to confirm, oh, hey, that looks like the same guy. It looks like the same guy is also in a jumpsuit at some point. This guy's definitely a felon. However, you only need to look at it for a little bit of time to realize that that photo of the younger Zach Kelling in a jumpsuit is actually the same photo of the younger Zach Kelling in a normal sort of outfit. And that orange jumpsuit has actually been photoshopped onto him. I'm sorry.
Of course. Of course. Because why wouldn't they do that? That is so fucking crazy to do, by the way, in a video like this.
Me personally, this felt very sneaky and manipulative, and it does ring a bell as to the accuracy of this information. And the thing is, if it does in fact turn out that Logan Paul is wrong on this one, This is highly defamatory. We're talking about defamation per se, where Zach wouldn't even need to prove damages. And what's more, because Zach is not a public figure, and because his participation in the series was as anonymously as possible, he requested anonymity, and so coffeezilla gave.
You could argue being doxxed.
Using his full name, he didn't physically appear with his face, or his voice was also distorted. All of these things indicate that he is not a public figure, he is a private figure, and so the analysis would be different than it is for Logan Paul. In other words, Zach would not have to show actual malice. All he would need to show is that Logan Paul was negligent in using his photo, using this information, and by making a misstatement about a potential criminal background of Zach Kelling. And the damages for this could be very, very high, not only because of the nature of the lies, but also because it was said by Logan Paul, which already is something that garners its own sort of exposure. But it's being said by Logan Paul in the midst of a controversy that is also generating a lot of...
But also not just said in the midst of a controversy, it's being said to get Logan Paul out of a controversy. Therefore, the damages will be higher.
So all Zach would need to do is show that Logan lied about him and did so negligently. That is a much lower standard than actual malice. So, like I said, for Logan's sake, I really do hope that he was right about the lead developer being a felon, because otherwise...
You blew it.
So yeah, okay, there could be a number of reasons for Logan's sudden about face. It could just be because he saw that the public backlash was overwhelmingly against him on this issue and maybe realized that people saw him as like the Biff to CoffeeZilla's Marty McFly.
All right, punk. Now what? Whoa, Biff, what's that?
It's like a little gnat. It's like a little fucking annoying gnat. It bothers me.
Or it could be that he had legal counsel giving him some very strong words about some of the repercussions of what he did in the last two videos. Or maybe both. Something tells me it was probably both. But what do you think?
All right, well, we'll leave it there. But again, it's just really frustrating because these people have zero expectations for like legitimacy in a way, because they have so much money that if they throw a bunch of money at a lawsuit and they lose it, it's fine. They can just, you know, put more money into crypto and make it all back again. And that's what's dangerous about people like this. And that's why CoffeeZilla continues to fight the good fight. And I really like him. And we'll leave it there. Shout out to Legal Bites. I really, really, really enjoyed this video.